Well, good evening once again. Welcome to Forecast Lab. Well, with the depressing news that we're seeing every day here, it's kind of nice to send the drone up and kind of look at nature, and suddenly your problems don't seem quite so big from up there. Anyway, we got a beautiful day here with clear skies, and the dew points are way down there in the 40s. In the southwestern U.S., we've got another Pacific system on the move, and it looks like it's centered up there in eastern Nevada, right there. And we can make out some northwesterly flow through the San Joaquin Valley there. Temperatures only in the low 60s there. And south of there, this looks like the old air mass that was in place. There's 82 right there around Barstow, 85 down to Palm Springs. And in between, just kind of a stagnant continental tropical air mass flowing into the pressure falls across Utah and Colorado. And out in Texas, looks like we got one warm frontal boundary moving up through the Waco and Abilene area. North of that, low 70s, dry conditions. And south of there, temperatures near 80 for the most part, and likewise, also kind of a dry air mass there. No sign of a dry line coming together yet. And that was kind of a disappointment because I've got dry line symbols working in digital atmosphere. So hopefully we'll get some use out of that pretty soon. Anyway, oh yeah, also undo. So hopefully that'll come in handy there. The southeastern U.S. pretty quiet, and I think I got to change that air mass to continental. It is heavily modified, though. Right now we're just showing high pressure across the Mississippi River Valley there. A very weak 10-20 millibar high up in Indiana. And it extends south as a ridge all the way down to Louisiana. And also down there in Florida, looks like a dry day. Dew points way down to the 40s and 50s, and temperatures down into the low to mid 70s. Out in the northeastern U.S., you can see the remnants of that massive high pressure. Remember, a few days ago, we had a 1040 millibar highway up there in Quebec, and it is expanded and modified, and it's just now covering much of the eastern and Midwest area. And back behind it, it is a little bit on the cold side, 40s and 50s through the northeast, and there's that north wind bringing down that somewhat humid air mass. Some of it's had some origins from the Hudson Bay region, this Lake District of Quebec, and the Maritimes. And it looks like some weather up there in the Dakotas. You can see that outbreak of cold polar air coming in from Saskatchewan. Temperatures back there behind it in the teens and 20s. Out ahead of it, temperatures in the 40s and 50s. I'm not entirely sure I would call that a front. I put a trough in here, but you could also go with something like, I think you could probably make a case for a cold front kind of like that. So I don't know, there could be something in there, but it's kind of detached from the main Bear Clinic system way down to the south. And anything in this inverted trough here, it's probably going to start filling. I think this is probably an old occlusion that's still got a little baroclinicity left in it. And for the northwest U.S., there's that look at that very cold blast coming out of Alberta into Montana. Looks like most of the cold air is kind of banked up in the mountains, the Rockies right there. And that leaves the Pacific Northwest kind of in this unstable region underneath the cold core low. So what's causing all this cold weather? Well, I had to show you this. This is kind of a weird thing that's going on up there in Canada. Big old 1064 millibar high centered over western Baffin Island. Now, it's pretty uncommon to get a high this strong in April, and even in January and February. This is pretty unusual. Anything over 1060, 1070 millibars in the middle of winter would be not uncommon, but it would kind of mark a very severe cold outbreak. And well, we've got it this time. Temperatures in the near minus 18 to minus 23 during the middle of the day. Yeah, that's definitely a cold wave. Let's see what the normals are in that area. We'll try Resolute Bay right here where it's minus 16. I can just go over to Wikipedia and look at their climate and get an idea of what they normally have. Normal range, 18 for a high during the day, 8 for a low, and the lowest ever recorded, minus 20. So we're way down there on the bottom end of that. That's definitely pretty unusual there. So I had to go over to Canada's analysis just to make sure I wasn't seeing anything like old data, and yeah, it's there. 1st of April. Yeah, so we've got kind of an anomalous event there. Big old 1065 millibar high parked over the Canadian high Arctic. Good grief. So the big question is, what are the models going to be doing with this high? Well, there it is over the Canadian high Arctic. The chart's kind of a mess, but we can kind of follow that along and see what happens. Well, not surprisingly, it starts weakening a bit, but it's still hanging on there going into tomorrow and the next day, and then it just finally starts letting off. So, yeah, some gradual erosion, and it looks like most of the cold air does stay up in Canada. Now, the reason it's staying up there in Canada is we've got a pretty active zonal pattern in the U.S. It's got kind of a high amplitude there. It's kind of broken up into a series of troughs and ridges. And there's one trough coming on shore affecting the Pacific Northwest, and you can see that part of it, the forward edge of that trough, kind of points north into Canada, and that's going to kind of block that cold air from coming south. So that vortex over the western U.S. is keeping it up there, otherwise we would have that cold air spilling south. So let's see what happens dynamics-wise. Couple of waves coming into the western U.S. We've seen that over the past 2 weeks or so. So just more of them coming in. And then we get set up with this very deep southwesterly flow across the much of the U.S. on the 6th. So we're talking about early next week. Canada, or California there being battered by another low there coming on shore. This will probably start tapping some tropical moisture and bringing it north. And that cutoff low just kind of spins over Arizona into the 9th and 10th. And we get to the end of what we have as far as the 18Z charts. So that brings us up to the 10th. Okay, so for our forecast, there's not a whole lot going on today unless you're up there in Wyoming or Utah. But yeah, that Pacific front is going to be affecting that area. Part of it extending down there into California, so I think I'm going to treat that as a separate system. So let's see. We already worked some of this out on the analysis there. And yeah, I probably would go ahead and go with a separate system up there in Canada, something like that. So certainly. And then, of course, we got that high pressure centered over, well, obviously far northern Canada, and we get this big ridge extending all the way down towards the Gulf. And there's another lobe of that cold air coming out of Alberta and Saskatchewan. So moving on into tomorrow. Looks like that Colorado low just kind of sinks south, the big mass of dense air sinking down into Kansas and Colorado. So it's just kind of oozing south like that, pushing the low, just kind of carrying it southward. And looks like the tail end, get a little frontalysis out there in Nevada. And then the leading edge of this front, let's see. This could be a potential baroclinic development area, but I don't see anything coming together. So I would probably just handle that as a front for now. It's kind of very, very oddly shaped front. And then the rest of that lobe of high pressure from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf, it just continues pushing very gradually to the east. So it'll be over New York tomorrow, maybe part of Florida, and then it should be out of the picture the next day. Okay, then for Friday, I'm drawing that ridge out from James Bay down to Lake Erie and south to the Appalachians. So, like I said, that's shifting to the east. So it'll be kind of a nice day Friday there in the northeastern U.S. A little bit of a system off the coast there, bringing a little bit of a strong wind in places like Boston and Connecticut there. The Alberta-Saskatchewan front continues to sink south through Oklahoma and Texas. So there's the leading edge of that, and I don't know, you could probably make a case for a little bit of baroclinic development right there. It looks like that Manitoba system does come together. So yeah, I would probably analyze that separately. And then, let's see, not much going on in Texas, but I think we will get that upslope start to develop once again in West Texas. And then this is going to be the picture for Saturday. Looks like continued high pressure across most of the eastern U.S. See that upslope is starting to get going in Texas. A few showers moving west to east across Austin and Waco there. And out in California, our new system, I wonder how much snow they're getting there in the northern Sierra Nevada, especially around Lake Tahoe. It's got to really be coming down. In fact, I wonder if this is one of those winters like back when the Donner Party was stuck in that part of California. They were getting hammered by snowstorm after snowstorm, and maybe the pattern was very similar to this. A lot of upper-level lows and deep troughing across the west coast. It was probably just like this. Anyway, yeah, there is another system, much like today, coming together in Nevada, and then back behind it, there's that cutoff low right there over the Eureka and Arcata area. All right, well, it's running kind of late, so I've got to get this show wrapped up and put together. So I will go ahead and start editing, and we will see you all tomorrow. Take care, all.